Hello and welcome. Today, at the third day of the Istanbul Fintech Week, we're at the opening ceremony and we're here to discuss one of the significant topics because we will be discussing some of the services that we have been waiting for a long time, but we've started seeing banking as a service. This is something that we have tried to contribute for a long time, open banking and banking as a service. With the developments in these areas, we have also exerted great efforts to pave the way for such developments, and we are here joined by colleagues who have helped us from Active Ventures. We have the general manager Yakup Sezer, and from eLogo we have Abdullah Ceylan. They are both going to talk about the pluses, the advantages of banking as a service, and some of the possible initiatives, some of the possible openings, and they will talk about their own experience and how some of the services have transformed. I would like to start by asking the first question to Yakup. We talk about financial inclusion, and in order to increase financial inclusion, fintechs will help us, we always say. So banking as a service plays an important role because as banks open to new structures, we will see the enlargement of the scope of services. The BRSA has prepared a new regulation, and fintechs and banks will come together at the same platform. So I'd like to start by this first question. What do you think about this? Are we entering a new era of radical changes? Let me start with that. Yes, we are finally entering. So yes, thank you for this beautiful question and your kind invitation. I hope this will be an enjoyable event for the audience. Yes, banking as a service is an idea with radical changes. The idea itself is actually has different fintechs or structures or formations or third parties can trigger all of these. And for many years now in Europe, this idea has been tried and it has created very successful outcomes and financial inclusion or innovation in different areas in finance industry. It has helped in moving things forward. It has been a thing that had an impact on many other things. Big fintechs and successful fintechs have always first come with this model by using the service infrastructure of big banks or big institutions, and they were able to go very quickly through their initial hurdles and became successful. So for fintechs, banking as a service brings banks and fintechs together. And it's a new world where banks open their services to fintechs. I believe radical changes will happen. I'm one of the people who look very positively to the issue because fintechs have I'm a person who has worked very closely with fintechs as a bank and as an individual. We have worked with them in terms of licenses, infrastructure, compliance, and technology. There are big challenges that a fintech cannot address by itself. And Turkish fintechs are having challenges in overcoming these, and the ones in Europe are comparatively much more lucky. But with banking as a service, conditions will be more equal, and the regulator has approved the model as well. So now they are at the same level. So with that, at the fundamentals, building a fintech, it gives us a main frame, but many different platforms. Of course, there will be new fintechs and many different entrepreneurs will enter because it's a playing ground. In the past, the road was more difficult to run on, but now they can run much more faster. I believe we will see much more fintechs, and we can see that in the current vibrations. We can see many people coming and going, interested in the services, and many platforms, e-trade platforms or digital platforms, they start taking up this topic as well. Why, for instance, why don't I scope more things with banking as a service, they say. So a big unbanked group will be banked not through banks but through UX interface designers through banking as a service. It will have an impact on the financial industry as well. There will be radical changes, yes, but this will not come from banks but from fintechs, and it will be on a win-win basis because only through the other party you can establish a service, and I believe this will affect banks a lot as well. I want to make a small addition. As we talk about fintechs, on the other side, we see that different structures are going to be entering the fintech domain as well. Yes, definitely. It's very impressive, actually. We are witnessing it as we speak. For instance, when it comes to banking as a service, we have important infrastructure preparations, and 30 or 40% of those who we talk to are fintechs. The rest are not. They're a platform runner or a service producer or a community manager, such companies. And everyone would like to offer fintech services. Not all of them, but they want to cooperate with financial technologies. Many different entrepreneurs or enterprises want to do this. And from that, then I bring it to our other guest, because A-Logo is one of those players. They have a different perspective on fintech, a different approach to fintech as an ERP player. And as an integrator company, they have entered banking as a service, and they follow closely the developments in banking as a service. So what does A-Logo think? Could you give us your perspective? Of course, Jakub summarized it very well, some of the changes that will happen in line with the changes that have already happened so far. And we will be going much faster in the future compared to the past. In the past, it was walking. Now it will be running in the upcoming process. My contribution would be a different perspective as an employee of an ERP company. Banking as a service has two elements. One is a service banks, and second, the infrastructure of those banks opening to customers, caring to customers through B2B and B2C, through interface designer. We can define it as platforms. We are going to enter a world of platforms, and businesses, right when they need it, they will, at the channel that they have the need, through the ecosystem, through the platform, they will be able to access services, and the financial inclusion will increase rapidly in the new era. In B2C, we have had many successful examples like Uber. For instance, without owning a taxi, is the largest ride-hailing platform in the world, or Facebook, without creating any content, is already the largest media company. This list can be extended, like Google, Spotify. We can list many more examples, but when we evolve it to the B2B side, especially in increasing the financial inclusion, such ERP companies have an advantage, because the system or the software that we call ERP is where businesses have all their data, where all the data can be photographed and input can be created for financial services. These are platforms where this big data exists for the B2B side. Especially in finance and accounting, relevant users can be targeted with tailored offers. As Logo Group, in 1984, we have started our journey. Today, we have a big customer portfolio that we're serving with our ERP solutions. On the other hand, in addition to our ERP, we are a private integrator as well as a Logo, and there is big data in that world as well. E-invoice, e-ledger, etc. This is where all commercial data exists. And here, in terms of financial services, when we look at a typical commercial cycle, where the trade happens, then having settlement, creating the invoice. After the invoice is made, having the agreement, the settlement, do we agree on the records, and then creating the accounting records, creating the legal data. So in this flow, as ERP and as a private integrator, we are present in the whole cycle. And there's a big world of financial services that can be positioned around this model. So the developments in banking, which we are following closely as well, and we hope that in the future, in the upcoming minutes, we'll have a chance to discuss these as well. Many services that can offer a value in an understanding of mentality and even beyond. With the fintech ecosystem that we create, we would like to offer these as a service to our customers. Thank you very much. In that case, your perspective, maybe we see many B2C examples, and maybe these are examples that are more visible and heard much more. But normally, when we look at structures like e-logo, these are products that are already living in finance. So it's happening now, but it should have happened a long time ago, because continuously financial services are tapped, but without direct contact. Now we will be shifting to a much more open world. So now I would like to ask this next question to both guests. I would like to go a bit more specific. Yes, we have talked about the vision, but both globally and locally, yes, banking as a service will be the future of financial services, both for the banks and fintechs and service providers. What will banking as a service be changing? Could we go into more detail to make it a bit more concrete in people's mind? Let's start with Abdullah. First, start with Yakup. It's changing a lot. It's changing the fundamentals, first of all. At the end of the day, fintechs, why do they exist? Why do banks exist? Of course, they are established for commercial purposes, but there are different challenging ways that go to that direction, and they have to achieve certain things. When we look at a fintech and compare it to a bank, the bank has a strong license power. It's a very bureaucratic and big player. It's a non-agile structure. It has money. It's a big organization. It has a financial strength, but it's acting slow, and it's natural. It's a big organization with thousands of employees. It's like a big cruise ship and hard to make decisions quickly. And fintechs, on the other side, fintechs, of course, the way they do business is different. They are faster, they're more agile, and they are supposed to act quicker, because it's like a small bay that they have reserved for themselves, not occupying it, but in order to have a successful enterprise, you have to conquer a domain and you have to be successful. It should be a perfect service so that you can expand upon it later. They exist to be an alternative or to disrupt certain things. So a different world or a different philosophy or way of doing business that a bank cannot handle. What is it changing? By bringing the fintech and the bank together, they can do work together. It makes the establishment of a fintech easier. To give you an example, in any fintech area, could be a payment technology, digital bank, or any other thing, you have to go through a license process. You have to be audited. Of course, this is not easy. It's a fintech and it's a team of 5 to 10 people. How will they expand the business? How do they pay the salaries? How do they go through the licensing process? How do they make money? So they have different needs that they have to focus on. So banking as a service model on the fintech side is an area that they can get going very easily. So it makes the establishment of a fintech much easier. It makes it immensely easier. For instance, through APIs, you can reach account services or card services, and without a license, in 2 to 3 weeks, you can take your product online. And it's not possible in the world. It would take for a fintech or an app to 6 months to a year to be built. Banking as a service has lower operation costs. The bank has higher ones, but by dividing it into smaller parts, this is what we do on the bank side. When we reflect it to interface developers, with very low cost, we allow them to breathe and to grow. And with lower costs, with lower OPEX, we allow them to grow much faster. It goes up to 3%. For instance, we can decrease 100 unit cost down to 3 units. So for fintechs, it's the same, more comfortable, less costs, and developing faster. For banks, the relation is like the big shark and the smaller shark that swim around it, which consume, for instance, smaller living beings that the shark cannot consume. So they feed together. Banks include an agility that they couldn't have themselves, and through the fintech they access more people because their clients are the bank's clients, and new revenue streams or new cash flow or very different current account flows can be created. This is the case for the bank, and banks are in the more reliable area. The bank is not doing much when you work with your IT. When you do a plug and play, the work hour is increasing. The bank is allowing business in different areas. There's something that we call invisible banking. Maybe that's the direction that we are evolving towards. They will not have contact with the customer. So for the bank, it will allow more effective ways of doing business. For instance, bank's top cost is branches. In service banking, this is something that we don't look at. These are digital enterprises without physical contact, which means lower costs, fewer people, and more technology, which will affect less costs for the banks, because the drop in the cost can change many things, especially for banking. One of the problems that are experienced here is business models and life are changing. So when it comes to building and growing, I believe costs will decrease and new exciting ideas will bring color to the industry. I believe there will be such disruptive changes. I asked the question to Abdullah as well, but let me make a comment. Banking as a service has bank and the users and the developers of new services. So let's look at the perspective of the other side and let's see what will change in our lives. So far, there have been different processes, and in the previous part we have focused on two main areas of change: financial inclusion and financial innovation. These are, of course, general terms. There can be different examples under each topic, especially on the platform or developer or customer side. A lot will change, but let's try to make it a bit more concrete. In financial innovation and inclusion, at the right time, through the right channel and the right customer, it's important to bring this service to the customer, especially banking as a service will pave new ground. There were new solutions developed, but for many of them, in certain cases, financial institutions or the customers were not ready to use or offer these processes. But with an overall change and transition, the speed has increased for both sides. To give an example, for instance, so far, in fact, banks had digital channels that were very good, that were making us proud on a global scale. When you go abroad, we experience this through more challenging processes. but there was a break. For instance, there was a mismatch in B2B businesses. After they carry out their banking services, for instance, when they do a wire transfer, they had to go back and create accounting logs for the transfer. And these two systems are not systems that communicate with each other. It's actually easy on both legs. You can do this very easily on the digital. And then they go back and they were able to create the accounting register with some manual effort. But once that transaction happened, the accounting log should be created automatically. That would give us great savings of time. In a company that we work with in the field visit, I heard that a day and a half every week with the staff, they create the accounting logs in the past, but now in just half an hour they're able to do it, and it's only to check for internal audit they're able to make the same transactions. And the solution that made this possible was the integration that we established. Today with Akbank we have a new project which we are going to be expanding, and there are other projects that we're working on as well. Within ERP applications, creating a banking world is our target. By positioning digital banks into ERP, accounting logs can be created automatically, or when a wire transfer or wire order is made in ERP, with a single click, it could be transferred to the banks and vice versa. On the inclusion side, this was only one of the examples. Another example can be given about innovation in order to make things more concrete. Today, businesses have their cash flow on different platforms and different screens, and offline they try to meet their needs in order to access different financing solutions. But it's today possible to do the following. I mean, this was possible in the past as well, but with the new increased speed, it is even more possible today. A person, a finance employee or accounting employee, when they enter the ERP software, they can see how much they will have income and how much they have to pay, or how much they have cash in the bank, and they can see that they will be short in a week's time or 10 days time, or maybe to the contrary, they have more cash flow than they need. So would you like to use this product, for instance? This could be one option. A second option could be meeting the cash needs financing solution, and secondly, using the extra finance in alternative methods. Doing this offline is possible, and the business can take actions reactively, but rather than that, they can be more proactive, and certain offers can be made to the business proactively. This will be mean more inclusion with integration. And innovative such services can make use of big data, as Jakub also mentioned. Without losing the agility in terms of service, fintechs offer great value, and banks, in terms of infrastructure, maybe they will be less of a cruise ship, and they will gain much more speed with different solutions. So the changes in these examples in change we have discussed in these two topics, but to give you some examples, this would be what comes to my mind. Thank you so much. So let's talk about competitiveness, and of course at the end of the day there is co-creation, which means there will be competition as well. For that reason, let's talk about some of the areas that will gain significance within competition, because with service banking, as Jakub said, normally maybe companies which have never operated in this area before, or people who have a certain user group which are already addressing, appealing to a certain group, will be interested in this area. So I believe there will be fierce competition. So how do you think will the achievers differentiate themselves? Of course, there will be new players in our lives when we look at the financial industry. There will be service banks, fintechs, digital banks, and incumbent banks. So there will be these four players in the new world. Of course, it's possible to say when we look at a fintech, why does it exist? It exists because it has found a gap and it has created a great product or service and trying to gain market share. We believe there will be fierce competition between fintechs, and I believe we will see the competition between them. And there won't be too many service banks, but between them there will be a competition as well, we can say clearly. And these are two different players. There may be a cooperation between them, but in the background there will be digital banks coming, which can act as a bank or a fintech. So it will be even more complicated. Then we will have conventional banks, which will make it even more complicated. So everybody will be competing against everybody. But I can say the following. There is a basic fintech organization. There are 11 organization blocks: organization, IT, HR, customer, channel. I believe the top topic is, according to our experience in Germany, we had fierce competition there, and I believe we were able to observe clearly. You have a product in your mind, let's say, creating it very quickly and bringing it to the customer. Being agile becomes a very big advantage because we will see that competition. For instance, one fintech has gold account, the other one cannot delay by 6 months or a year in order to offer gold account because by that time it might be dead. So BRSA asks for a technical infrastructure, and those who cannot provide that will never have a chance to exist. On the other hand, strong technical side, quick operation, you click the send money button, but it takes too long. No, you only have a limited number of seconds to serve the customer. In the background, there has to be great organization for customer satisfaction. Those who can do that well will thrive. And at the end of the day, we have experienced this personally. After you have 100 new accounts, but you have to close 10 because of bad compliance, it could also be bad. You have to follow regulations closely and have good compliance. It looks like it doesn't exist in our lives, but compliance can be the biggest sword. Those who can run compliance well will succeed. And on the other hand, our experience on the other side, those who have price flexibility, those who do not try to have high costs for the customer, but rather those who can bring their products to the customer with affordable prices. We haven't experienced it, but we will in the new world, hopefully. Those who can offer tailored services, for instance, those who know me personally and offer me personalized health or financial services. There are many verticals which we believe there will be fintechs in this area as well. So fintechs which are successful in these areas will succeed, in my opinion, and those who can cover these areas well, for both service and digital banks and conventional banks, those fintechs will exceed them by a big margin. There will be a lot of competition between them, but at the end of the day, we end up coming to innovation in the process, in the product, in the operation, in the infrastructure. Those who have great innovation will thrive. Abdullah, can I ask you the same question? What do you see in competition? And for your side, in your services, can you also give us examples before we close? Competition, yes. In terms of expectations of the customer, competition will increase. Developments in open banking or the transformation in digital banks or banking as a service, customer expectations in terms of experience are at high levels, which will be even higher, which will feed competition. But At the first question, we have also talked about the age of platforms. Banking as a service has two elements. We said on the one side, service bank, and the side offering the financial service, and secondly, the interface developer. But a second title will be maybe business partnerships in the new process, because on the one side, yes, one side will offer financial services, but on the other side, there is the contact with the customer or the provider of the financial services. Maybe it's an extreme example, but they could be great in loans for the business, but on the other hand, maybe in commercial credit cards, there could be advantages offered. Maybe they will have the chance to cooperate with such institutions. What I'm trying to say is maybe one business has operational challenges or out of habit or out of limited access. In the essence, maybe at least in their financial processes, they sometimes had the will to proceed with only one partner, but maybe in the new process, from a single channel or single screen, they will be able to use multiple products of multiple service providers from the same screen. And when that is the case, maybe they will want to take the service from the best provider of that service, and it will be easier to do so. So cooperations are very important. Competition is one aspect, but on the other hand, cooperation, both for financial service providers and also for ourselves, the ERP companies or different platforms, the ecosystems, the financial ecosystems that we establish, I believe it will be more important. Those institutions or businesses who run these cooperations or partnerships well, fintechs, banks, or platforms, those who can run this cooperation well, who can turn it into cooperation, and while competing on one hand, being able to establish business partnerships with the correct model, such organizations will gain significance, in my opinion. They will come forward. And to go back to our efforts in ERP, for a long time, we are working on banking as a service, and we're following the regulation closely, and we're trying to advance our efforts as an ERP company and one of the oldest ERP companies of our country. Since 2008, so far, we have established various banking integrations. For instance, we had a word called Connect Bank, which had the first integration in 2008, and it has been carried all the way to today. ERP users are able to link to certain banks through bridges. With our teams and other products, I can extend the list. With the recent developments, especially with open banking and digital banks, banking as a service, in this transformation change, we have improved the infrastructure and we have initiated many innovative processes. For instance, in ERP banking, or as I said at the beginning of the panel, with different banks, we have developed models where we carry banks inside the ERP. We have developed such applications, and in addition to that, we have another product. In terms of 2022 vision, we're working on this. It has 10 to 12 banks inside it, and on a single platform, basic banking transactions can be carried out, and there can be transfers made between systems, certain ERP transactions, and within ERP, being able to do this in a single platform and integrating fully with the ERP. We are continuing our work with such practices, and in terms of innovation and financial inclusion, this will add a lot of value. And banking integration is something that we have been working for a long time. In addition to this, our second focus is collection solutions. On the On this site, we are developing solutions with which we back with banking services. For instance, there are many different registries about collectibles of the companies, the invoices, the checks, and certain due dates are awaited. There could be different processes for collection. For instance, it is very widespread to collect through links, and PFs are providing this service, but integration is missing. Yes, you collect your collectibles, but you have to create a registry for it as well, or you have to close the e-invoice. This is exactly what we will be offering, and we're working on this solution currently, and we want to be able to offer this to our customers next year, and through a post-provider basket with the post provider that the business agrees on through ERP. There could be a link that goes to the other side, and collection can be made. Then the system can recognize these automatically, and the relating invoice can be closed automatically. In terms of collectibles solutions, we have many more examples. A third is liquidity or financing solutions. We are investing into innovative solutions in this area, especially recently under the pandemic conditions. Access to finance or access to cash has been more important because of the pandemic conditions. For instance, turning the future collectibles into present cash, or when businesses need, and through the right platform, access to financing options. Offering the related solution to the customer in the right time will emerge, in my opinion, as a very valuable process. We continue our efforts for checks, discounts, invoice, and other supplier financing solutions. We are working on such innovative models. Thank you very much, Abdullah, and I would like to close with Yakup. As the other side, as the provider of the service, what are your preparations or work or future plans as a closing remark? We are on the service banking provider side, and we're on the fintech establishing side. And whether we offer service banking or not, we have also invested into fintech. So we have these triple legs, and we have different institutions, asset management, portfolio management, payment agents. There are different capabilities which we all want to bring together on a single platform and offer it as a service banking marketplace. We would like to announce it to the ecosystem soon. If you want banking service, crypto, payments, FX, anything that you can think of about the banking industry, multi-banking, financial health, even technologies will be embedded in this new structure. It is present, but integrations continue with our API platform. But we want to turn this into a fintech, and we want to launch this as a fintech that can serve many parties and turn Active Bank into a very strong service bank, a very assertive one. And very soon, I believe we will make a lot of progress. We have close to 50 partners that we are in contact with, and they're trying to create a business or integrate through our platforms. The only difference is that we will do this as fintech entrepreneurs. This will not be managed by bankers. This will be a service banking run by fintechs and fintech people, and soon we will be sharing this with the public. Thank you so much. In previous years, in one of our sessions with Active Bank, there was also this lenience to establish different structures, so I knew that they would be more agile. Yes, this is a venture builder, and with service banking, we are going to boost it. Great. Thank you to both of you for your participation and the valuable information that you have provided us. We have to shift to the next panel, so I'd like to close this session here. Thank you to both of you for the different perspectives. Thank you so much.
Çok sağ olun. Hoşça
Çok sağ
kalın.
olun. Çok teşekkür ederiz.